One of the biggest questions when planning your relocation to Africa, Liberia, Ghana, whichever country, is how much do I need to move to Africa? Hello there, welcome back to my channel. My name is Marianne Allen. I am so happy to have you here today. Welcome to the tribe. If you have not joined this tribe, I hope you stick around to the end of this video and just maybe you might become a part of this tribe. If you clicked on this video, you're probably interested in relocating to Africa or Ghana specifically, and you're curious how to go about your budgeting and how much to save for your entire relocation process. I'm going to give you some valuable information in this video that will enable you make proper decision when it comes to budgeting and how much to come up with before relocating to Ghana. If you're new here, I cover my relocation process to Ghana. I moved to Ghana about 3 months ago. I'm currently visiting the US to be going back to Ghana. I'm originally from Liberia, and I cover contents on Liberia and also Ghana. If you have not seen my Liberian contents or Liberia contents, make sure you check my channel for more videos on Liberia. And if you're interested in my Ghana contents, well, I have videos on there too for Ghana. I hope you can subscribe, share the video, like the video, and hey, watch the ads to support the channel. One of the biggest questions when planning your relocation to Africa, Liberia, Ghana, whichever country, is how much do I need to move to Africa? How much do I need to move to Ghana? And it's a pretty tough question because no one really gives you an exact figure, either of how much they saved to move to Ghana or what their budget is. It's very seldom you find people giving you information like that. So sometimes you will hear people talk about their expenses, but not so much like how much did you come up with to make this move happen. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about this, and I hope this information is valuable to you today. So first, when you're budgeting, when you're thinking about going back to Ghana, or other African countries, there are 3 categories that you want to focus on. Make sure you're putting money away for those 3 categories, or just make sure your recurring income covers the 3 categories. The first category is your lump sum category. Africa is a cash society. Ghana is a cash society. You're paying for a lot of your things in cash instead of cards. So you need to have physical cash available to be able to make payments for things. And another thing is housing in Africa. I'm not sure about a lot of other countries, but from my knowledge, a lot of the landlords in Africa would take a year's worth of rent or sometimes more. Very seldom do you find month-to-month rents like you would find in the West. And then also, if you were to find those month-to-month rent, they're good, but they tend to be more expensive. So you have to plan for that. So you need to be able to come up with a year worth of rent. So the first thing to do is to kind of figure out where you want to live first of all, because you can't start saving if you don't even know like how much it's going to cost you. So you want to have a budget, like set a budget about of how much you want to spend for housing, and then multiply that by 12, and that is your 1 year's rent. And then kind of do in your research phase, you want to make sure you're checking to see how much landlords are requesting for. In Ghana, you can find that information on websites like the Mikasa site. When you look on there, it'll tell you like the average. You kind of look at different listings, and it can pretty much tell you like what are landlords looking for. In places like Liberia, it's a little bit more difficult to know because it's not listed somewhere that you can go and see. However, the trend in Liberia is for a year, so you want to plan for a year worth of rent. So your lump sum expenses would be housing and transportation. So car, if you're buying a car, you want to make sure you save up that money. Or if you're shipping a car, you also want to make sure you save up the money to ship the car because it can be pretty expensive. So those are like the heavy upfront cost that you need to come up with. And depending on what your housing cost or what your car would cost, that could be somewhere around $20,000 just for those two things. Just for those two things or more. Whether you're buying a car in the US, coming up with the money to ship it, freeing it and everything, and then paying for your rental cost, and sometimes furnishing would have to be like another lump sum upfront cost that you would have to come up with. So just that could be somewhere around, like I said, 20 grand, depending on how much your lease is. The second category that you want to save up for, or you kind of want to keep in mind, is your living expenses. So once you've taken care of the lump sum cost, you have a place to stay, it's furnished, and you have a car to drive, what's gonna carry you day to day? So you wanna be able to come up with a budget of what your living expenses would be on a day-to-day basis. And you can get a good idea of how much things cost. I mean, sometimes you can just set a budget like at the top of your head, but if you want it to be more realistic, make sure you're watching YouTube videos on like people's living expenses and the kind of life they're living, because if you want to live comfortably, then you want to budget a little higher, but then you also want to see someone who's kind of living comfortably and how much they're spending, so your budget is realistic. And one rule of thumb that my husband always says is over budget, and if you go and you spend under, that's great because then you have extra money to save. But if you under budget, there's a lot of stress, and then you're taking money from places you don't want to take money from. So living expenses would be your everyday expenses like food, transportation or gasoline, electricity, internet, those kinds of things. And the third category is your emergency expenses. So emergency expenses would be like healthcare. Whether you're seeking services in Ghana or abroad, you may need to make some upfront costs, which is kind of similar to the US too. We all have co-pays and stuff like that, but you may have to pay a little more upfront cost in countries in Africa compared to what your co-pay might be in the US or in the UK. So you want to make sure you have a little bit of money put aside for that, and some money for traveling outside the country, in and out of the country. You want to have that put aside. So the three categories: lump sum cost. Oh, did I just use my middle finger? So lump sum cost, living expenses, everyday living expenses, and your emergency costs. Now, with living expenses, you can decide to save up a good chunk and take with you. For example, like I will save up 6 months cost of living expenses, or I will save up a year of living expenses. Now, you can do that either if you don't have an established recurring income yet and you're just saving to go and then start doing something, you would have to save up your living expenses, because how do you take care of yourself while you're there? But if you have a recurring income already in place, then it's not urgent to save up that living expenses, because you can just budget right out of your recurring income every month. However, just to give you some flexibility, you might want to save up at least for a few months so that you have that money sitting down while your recurring income starts working for you or happening. Another thing that people don't pay attention to is what happens after the first 6 months, or what happens after the first 1 year, especially when it comes to budgeting. Most people will pay attention to the first year, like I'll save up for a year, I'll pay my rent for a year, and so on. But 1 year goes by pretty quickly. I mean, by the time you move and you settle in and everything, it's been 3 to 6 months already. And then the remaining 6 months, it just speeds through it. And now you have to start thinking about, how do I come up with the next rent amount. So if your rent is $1,000 a month, that's $12,000 that you came up with, you saved comfortably in the US to cover your rent, which wasn't any problem. But now that you're in Ghana, and you're using up your time pretty quickly, maybe you don't have a recurring income yet, you're trying to start up a business, what people don't pay attention to is, where do you take the next $12,000 from to pay for the next year? And even if you were to, which means from the date that you started living in that place, you need to be able to at least come up with $1,000 of savings every month to be able to come up with another year of rent by the end of the year. You get what I'm saying? So if you don't have a recurring income yet and it's been 3 months into your time of living over there, you just know that you're short already, or you would have to come up with a lot more money to come up with that rent for the second year. So a lot of people don't pay attention to the second year, or don't plan well for the second year, and then by the time the first year is wrapping up, when things don't go well, then you are stuck, or you try to downgrade. So one good rule of thumb is start small and then work your way up, which I'm going to talk about more in another video. But those are things to keep in mind when you're budgeting. So if you're curious, like, yeah, how much? No one can really tell you like how much to save to move to Africa. Like I always say, every situation is different. It's going to be unique to your own family situation. If you have kids, for example, you might want to save for schooling, and schooling could be a lump sum savings that you come up with. And those lump sum savings are the ones that you have to plan like for the second year, because they come up pretty quickly, and then what happens after that? You have to be able to come up for the next year. So it makes it kind of tricky. Your ongoing living expenses, even if you don't save up for it up front, you also need to make sure that recurring income can cover your living expenses, but then also save money so that it can pay for the lump sum expenses. You understand how that works? So it could be a lot of money, it could not be a lot of money, it all depends on your plan. What plans have you made or put in place? And I really can't tell you save $30,000 to move to Africa, save $60,000 to move to Africa, because it's different with every family, and the things that you need, the quality of living that you want to have would be different than what I'm willing to have. So it's hard to tell, but these different ideas and suggestions can help you decide and come up with an accurate budget, or an estimated budget that will be good and provides you some safety net. So I hope you found this information helpful for you today. If you have any questions, leave it in the comment section, or send me an email. Connect with me on social media, Facebook or Instagram. I will be willing to answer your questions. I will talk a little bit more on budgeting. If you've watched the video this far, you must be interested in relocating to Africa or Ghana. So make sure you hit the subscribe button and share the video. Thanks for coming by. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.